Thank you so much for joining us on Creating a Brand Strategy That Sticks. My name is Linda Alberti, and I am the president of Cultivate Excellence, a professional consulting firm aimed at enhancing principles for individuals through career empowerment, branding and leadership, and also organizations through integrated marketing communications. This is my website. For those who are interested in learning more, I'll talk a little bit more about what I do and just to give you the information that you need so you can later look at that. So as I mentioned, we specialize in career empowerment, brand building and leadership, and integrated marketing and communication. But today is not about me, it's about you, and by you being on this webinar shows your commitment to grow in your business. Wherever you are, maybe you're just starting to think about becoming a business owner and you're entertaining ideas, or perhaps you've taken that leap of faith and you're actually into the first couple months of business, or perhaps you're more senior, more seasoned, you've been doing it a couple years now, but you're looking to grow and really expand your service or your offerings, building up your clientele. In any case, branding strategy is going to become a critical component regardless of where you are on that continuum that I just described. And today's goal is really to give you some gold nuggets, some truths about branding strategy to help you create one that will be resonant with the audience that you serve. And also to demystify some of the common myths surrounding branding versus marketing and all of the possible tools that are out there and what makes the most sense for you as a business owner in terms of what you're trying to accomplish. So I hope that this presentation will be helpful and thought-provoking and certainly very relevant to what you're experiencing right now, as these issues are often top of mind for many business owners. At any time, you are welcome to type in your questions, and we will have an opportunity at the end of the presentation to field your questions and be sure that we address those things that matter most to you. So for today, I'd like to kind of outline what we will cover for the next 40 minutes and really show how this webinar is dedicated to you entirely. So the first and foremost important thing that we'll dive into is understanding and identifying really your audience persona. That's really identifying who do you serve, you know, what do they look like, what are their greatest needs, and how do you meet those needs, and then beginning to build an understanding around how you can leverage your audience to maximize your strategy. Next, this is something that I know a lot of people wrestle with, is understanding, well, what are the differences behind branding versus marketing? This is where we talk more about kind of the common myths that surround branding and then those that surround marketing. And we'll dive into kind of what that is and talk about what tools are available to you once you've figured it out. And I'll have opportunities to show you and graphs and charts, and hopefully that will really stimulate your thinking around that. Next, we'll go into some actual tools that you can leave this webinar ready to apply to your business surrounding memorable messaging. Memorable messaging is so critical because if we think about the brands that we interact with on a daily basis, you know, those companies or those products that we just love and we can't get enough of. You know, I am a lover of coffee, and I'll be the first to admit that the local Starbucks where I live, they know me personally because I go there every day. I just enjoy it so much. I enjoy the ambience, and I enjoy the people, and I enjoy the product, and I certainly love their coffee. But there's just something about the Starbucks brand that really appeals strongly to me and to many others. And so we'll talk about, you know, what have they done to really draw such a wide net of followers, and look at tools that you can begin using as early as tomorrow if you like. Next, we'll go into some golden rules, and these, you know, by golden rules, it's really just principles, because, you know, rules are one thing. Rules come and they go and they change, but principles are steady and remain constant and fixed. And I rather much focus on principles as a guiding light, kind of as a guiding roadmap, if you will, to help you understand some branding initiatives that you can start employing. And then finally, I'll talk a little bit about what I consider to be a sweet spot, something that people just can't get enough of, and something you can begin using in your brand strategies as a whole, but then also your marketing. So, you know, back to that little story that I just shared about Starbucks, I really want you to take a moment and just think about, you know, your favorite brands. What are they? Think about when you first encountered that brand, and what's your love story? And I know that sounds so funny to talk about love stories and brands, but I mean, when you think about it, that's really what it is. And so I want to talk about creating that love story. So I have a heart here because who you serve, the people that you serve should be able to feel the quality of your service or product. So it should be felt. It should be you know, almost bottled up in emotion. And so I really want you to start thinking about that. You know, maybe you're in the food industry and you cook in such a way that it brings back memories of childhood dishes that people enjoy, or perhaps you have a you know, you have a photography business and you take photos of weddings and very special moments in people's lives, and you capture that in film, but you do it in a way that is just so picture perfect and so wrapped up in the moment. These are things that tie your audience, your consumers, to your brand, and following that kind of roadmap will help you establish that more clearly, and it will be easier to follow that than it will trying to comprehend a million different strategies that may or may not fit for your business model. So by understanding you know, your brand, it's really understanding your consumer. It's all about the people that you serve. It's figuring out, you know, what do they want? What do they need? Most importantly, what do they perceive about your product or service? It could be that they have a sense of what you do, but they really don't know the full realm of it. Or perhaps maybe you have some, you know, you have maybe a strong following of people who just love you and they can't get enough of you. Well, if that's the case, those are the people that know you the most and are your best promoters. So understanding, you know, the who, the what, the where, the why, the how, and even the so what. Because when we think about ourselves as business owners, ultimately we fill a gap. We fill a need in society. In the marketplace, we fill a demand. And by filling that demand, we have to first understand, where does it even generate? Where does this all begin in the consumer's mind? At what point do they begin to say to themselves, you know, I've been thinking, I think I need to go take my dog and have them you know, perform some pet grooming? You know, is it when the dog, you know, grows its hair out to an unbearable level, or what is it, or what is it in that person's mind that tells them that they need to go and get your services for emails, postcards, or a website, or what be it? And so figuring that part out early is really the key to understanding your branding strategy. And then the next question to think about when you begin kind of walking down this path to understanding, you know, who am I? What do I serve? What do I give? How do I serve it? You know, where do the people that you serve congregate? And I know that sounds so funny because we live in this, you know, digital world and everyone's online, and it's almost impossible to find someone or find time to meet in person, or a lot of it has to do with, you know, seeing them more on Facebook than you probably see them in person, right? And so I understand that concept, but just really understanding that creating a credible brand in your consumer's mind is tied to building trust, and that's measured against adding consistent value to their life over time. Once you have that part figured out, then you understand who they are and where you can find them, or where, better yet, you can go and appeal your message to them. So if they are on Facebook, then it's probably great to create a Facebook campaign and strategy, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So just to kind of wrap this slide up, you want to look at, who do I serve? What do they need? How do they perceive me? When do they need what they need? How? How do I get it to them? And so what? Why is that important? And then how do I reach them? How does my message get to them? How do they hear about me or hear from me? These are things to consider as we think about our brand. But before we go any further, I would like to offer you the invitation to embark on this journey of breaking down what we think we know about marketing and branding. And the reason for it is because I'm going to throw some curveballs at you to help you think a little bit more broadly about this, and also to help you understand that what's right for one company may not be right for you. In fact, if this webinar is about you, it's about empowering you with principles that are going to help you succeed and helping you understand that, you know what, you can't be you can't be all to everyone, but you can be all to some. And figuring out that strategy is going to help you invest your time and your resources wisely. So creating a strategy, a branding strategy, happens when you know who you are and you show who you are to the people who know you or who may not know you, or those who love you, and you continue to grow who you are. So I think it's kind of this recipe. And that was kind of one of the promises of the tenets of this webinar, was that you're going to get a recipe of success. And this truly is what it is. It's understanding who you are, showing who you are, and growing who you are. These are the fundamentals of building a brand strategy. So I always love to start with demystifying things by starting at the place of what they're not. So defining the things that we think they are, and then realizing, well, you know, it's not that. So if it's not that, what can it be? And so I'll just begin by saying this. A brand strategy, as much as we like to think it is really not tangible. It's just not tangible in the form of solely a logo or a postcard or even a website. And I know that's like mind-numbing, because it's like, well, wait, I thought all those things were important and critical to gaining consumers and gaining clientele. Yes, they are so critical. These are pieces that need to go into your toolkit. But I'm here to tell you they're not the branding strategy itself. So if your logo is not a branding strategy, is that what you're telling me, Linda? Well, not exactly. It is part of it, but it's not the sole sum of your brand strategy. Your brand strategy is much broader. And so I invite you to look at it this way. A brand strategy is a long-term plan to achieve goals aimed at creating your brand, your branding, right? So your branding is an intangible experience. It's at every place, at every juncture of the customer experience. How do they perceive you? Who do they believe you are? What do you stand for? What are you remembered for? This is your branding strategy. And then that message being carried through certain channels to reach your intended audience. So your branding strategy should really be about enhancing the experience for the products and the services that you provide. And so I invite you to start here. And this is a very important slide because it really helps you begin to frame what branding is all about. So branding is about creating consumer-friendly messaging. Consumer-friendly messaging that resonates with them. So once they have a need, they're already thinking about you because your message has penetrated them, they've seen it more than once, and you've built trust and credibility. So having that consumer-friendly appeal makes you really in a good place to be top of mind for your consumers. Another piece of this is being relevant. So in the audience that you serve, you want to be sure that the products that you're giving out and the promotions are relevant to their needs. You know, if you're giving a promotion that is not in sync or in tangent with the product, it may not be, you know, necessary. It may not be relevant. So I'll give you an example. So if for every purchase you're giving someone a safety pin, I mean, that's a really silly example, but like, you say, and for every purchase, you'll receive a safety pin. Well, that's not relevant. I mean, what am I going to do with a safety pin? And so you want to create appeals and promotions and messaging that's going to draw your consumers based on what they need and what they're seeking and what's important to them. So maybe offering a service and then a discount for a referral, that's relevant. Now we're talking, because for every consumer, they have 2 or 3 friends that they can bring into that life cycle for your business. So creating something relevant will help you understand, is this relevant? Should I create this? And should I put the time to create that? And then, does it create awareness? So whatever you're doing, whatever service you're promoting, whatever product you're putting out there, is it creating awareness about something more broad? So I'll give you an example. So if your product is a cleaning agent and it's new and exciting because it employs some green initiatives, and the bottle's fully recyclable and there are no harmful chemicals and it's all natural, then how can you tie your product to something more broad scale that's related to the environment? So does your product push out information about the environment or about local initiatives that people can get involved with if they care about recycling or if they care about green initiatives? So suddenly it moves the conversation away from it just being a product and a sale to now becoming a conversation and you becoming the authority leader on this topic. So suddenly, now it's about your consumer, it's about what they care about. You build trust with them because they know that you are in tune with something much larger than just selling the bottle of the cleaning product. So are you creating awareness in your industry as it relates to the things that the people care about? The next part is it needs-based? So understanding, like, when you think of, once you figure out, who your audience is, what they look like, what they need, what's important to them, how often do they need it, when do they seek it out, once you begin to do a needs analysis, then you can figure out many more unique ways to package your service or your product, or to make it more compelling. These are all ways to infuse this idea of taking your current level, that current perception that people have of your business, and take it to a whole nother level. So I'll give you an example. So I have a colleague who produces, takeout dinners, and she produces that during the evening hours for people who are commuting from the train station or who are leaving their jobs and, going home late and don't know what's for dinner, and so these meals are ready to go, they're homemade, they're packaged nicely, so all the person has to do is come, pick it up, warm it up, and serve it to their family. That's very much needs-based because it centers around the busy adult who works during the day, gets out late at night, and now in Chicagoland is dabbling with, polar vortex freezing temperatures. And so this becomes very needs-based, very relevant. So I hope you're beginning to see this kind of master design come together as I throw these words out and the established meanings with them, to see, wow, it's so much more than just sending out an email or perhaps, basically, excuse me, I'm trying to get out of this window here. So what we can see is that it's so much more than what we think it is on the outside. And then we want to ask ourselves, does what I promote create visibility?